This is John and Maria Legrum when they were first married, and after this we're going to show their children as grown-ups and their children's families. That's the son, John, and the daughters, Marie, Pauline, Louise, Betty, and Matilda. This is a photo of the house of Marie and Frank Mitchell in Spring Valley, New York. They lived there for many years, raised their children there, Frances and Dorothy, and I spent many good vacations up there myself. It was a lovely little house. And this is a photo of a little stream and dam 1 block from Marie and Frank Mitchell's house in Spring Valley. To the left, not shown in this picture, was a little factory run by a water wheel, and they generally made smoking pipes in there. It was a nice, quiet place. Enjoyed the area and scenery very much. Another photo of the stream just above the dam. It looks like it was the fall of the year. Marie Mitchell's wedding picture, May 1920. Here's a close-up of Marie Mitchell. Here we have Marie and Frank Mitchell in their backyard in Spring Valley. I don't know what year it was taken in. Marie and Frank Mitchell in their living room. Marie and Frank Mitchell at another time. This must also be in the backyard of the Spring Valley residence. Here again, Marie and Frank in their backyard, and that's their 1-car garage in the background. And just to the left of the garage, Uncle Frankie had a big goldfish pond. It was very nice. I can remember Aunt Marie going out in the morning and feeding the fish the leftover oatmeal. They seemed to thrive on it quite well. This is a picture of Uncle Frank in his locomotive. I say his because he was a fireman on it. Had the runs between Jersey City, New Jersey, and Haverstraw, New York, which was about 15 miles north of Spring Valley. I had the fortunate opportunity to have a ride on this engine one day, and they are quite bumpy, a real rough ride. I don't know how many tons of coal Uncle Frank shoveled into this thing each day, but it was quite a large quantity. Frank Mitchell, April the 18th, 1918, in the ANAS sector. He was with the British Expeditionary Forces. Apparently, he enlisted before the United States went into war. This man, and you can probably tell by his face, was through 5 major battles in France. I believe he got a taste of mustard gas. He was in and out of veterans' hospitals the rest of his life. He had a whole slew of medals. I don't know exactly how many, but it was quite a large number. Another photo of his locomotive. I imagine that must be the crew standing alongside. It was quite a large piece of machinery. Closer look at the crew. I believe that must be Frank Mitchell in the center. Look at the size of those wheels, drive wheels. Now this is a group picture, I believe mainly of Frank Mitchell's family. They lived in Nyack, New York. It was about 10 or 15 miles south of Spring Valley. The second from the left is Frank Mitchell, and then Marie, then Grandma Legrum, Pauline, on the extreme rear right, I believe, is Bill Moore. Beneath him is Louise, one of the daughters. That's Louise Moore now. And she's sitting on the lap of Harry Abrams, quite a heavy man, and he was a baggage man for the Erie, and I think he worked on Frank's train. On the lower left, we have my cousin Dorothy. To be noted that Dorothy and her brother Francis, who are adopted children of Frank and Marie Mitchell. Now the rest of the people, I don't know, must, like I say, be Frank's family, and I wasn't that familiar with them. Now this is quite a nice photo of Marie Mitchell. Also from a living room in Spring Valley. Now this was taken in Winfield, Long Island, and Grandma is in the center, and her 2 daughters, the oldest Marie on the right, and just about 1 year younger on the left is Pauline. Grandma looks quite well on this photo. This is a photo of Marie Mitchell on the left and Pauline on the right, taken in Astoria, Long Island. And Pauline Erny is wearing a hat created by Giselle. Giselle used to be a milliner for Lily Daché. I believe she also worked for Christian Dior. She made some very beautiful hats. Here we have the two older sisters again, Maria on the left and Pauline on the right. This is Marie and Pauline, Spring Valley. The background shows an old barn, and I believe it was converted to living quarters. This was really the country at that time. Now it's all built up. This is a photo sent to Mrs. Marie Mitchell. I believe it was sent from Berlin, Germany. It must be some kind of a conservatory garden. There is some German writing on it, and I can't read it. But it looks quite like a nice place. Now this is the address of that letter, and there are German stamps on it. Picture on the stamps is a bust of Beethoven. I'll try to show the printed German words in case anyone can understand them. They'll know what perhaps this card is about. And then we have the little note to Mrs. Mitchell. So many years later, we are reading a postcard that was sent apparently from a friend. I am not quite sure if this is an early picture of Frank Mitchell, but we'll do this picture just to see the clothes worn by the men, the high collar, etc., etc. We'll pan it up. How nicely one hand is hidden out of the way. Don't distract too much from the photo. And now we see the fancy shoes, and I presume must be spats. This I believe to be Marie Mitchell, and I know the babies she adopted were quite young when she took them, so this may be Dorothy, but we do have a cute little dog on the right side, little poodle. We'll see if we can get a close-up here of the baby and poodle. Well, there we are, baby and poodle. I don't know whether it's a real one or a stuffed one. That mouth seems artificial. And this I believe to be Frank and Marie. They added a sense of humor to this photography business at any rate. These photos from an old Marie Mitchell album. God knows that they tried to be funny. See, I believe that date is, what, 1919. It looks like the wife is hollering at the husband for taking a little snort. That's the story I get out of it. I don't know who the gentleman is in the picture, but it sure is a nice old car, and the sign on the windshield says "Buy Liberty Bonds." So that's World War One. I don't know what license plate that is. So this is an early picture, I believe, of Marie on the right and Pauline on the left. Oh boy, the shoes. And this, I believe, is Pauline Erny. It's quite an outfit. I think this is Pauline. On the right, of course. And a friend there doesn't seem shy of the camera at all. Now this is Niagara Falls, New York, and it's a photo of the American Falls. And look at the date. It looks like June 13th, 1919. Now these falls look pretty much the same today. The Canadians are way in the background. Quite a lot of water passes over these falls, day and night for all these years. This is Pauline Erny, and the gentleman we've seen on many other pictures, and I finally come to the conclusion that he was a relative in Buffalo. Besides having this farm, he had a bakery. What sort of a relative or his name or anything, I don't have any information. And so Pauline comes back into the photo, and she's with that same other gentleman. Wish I knew his name. And this one is still around 1919 from Rochester, New York. Like the gals in this. So we have a New York license plate from, looks like 1919. But let's see the rest of the car. Now that round thing on top of the hood was a thermometer, and that showed you the temperature of your radiator water. You had to look out the windshield and see what the thermometer read. Could be easily seen. I believe they call this a touring car. Of course, the top came down, folded back, all done manually. Now this is a photo of an old farmhouse from 1919. And the reason why I'm showing this was in Buffalo or Rochester, I'm not sure. But Giselle's aunt, Josephine Gamrick, up in the Catskills, New York, had a house very, very similar to this. It's almost identical. In 1919, Buffalo, New York. This is what the ladies of the day wore. Matrons. I like those hats, man. There was something. Buffalo, New York, June 15th, 1919. And somebody's leaving to go back home. Let's see if the writing shows up. Anyway, the gals look pretty good. Travel attire. Not as casual as we do today. Buffalo, 1919. I'd like to show you the dress, etc. I believe this might be Pauline. Anyway, seems quite fancy. Now here's that mystery man we've seen in so many photos, and I see he's in front of the bakery. Well, someone's on the farm, but look at the size of those wagon wheels. And of course the old wheelbarrow. Nothing fancy about it. They could utilize it. It's a wedding picture of Marie and Frank Mitchell. I see even Aunt Marie had a picture of the Reverend. This is Eugene J. Erny. And this must be Frank Mitchell and some of his buddies. You can see it's Waco, Texas, January 15th, 1918. And I have to come back and we can read this little note on the right. I think I have ADITE, I believe it is. Whatever that means. Just to show the swimsuits of around the 1919 era. And the bathing caps. All the gals wore bathing caps. And you had almost like a sneaker to wear as a shoe when you went in. Fancy, fancy bathing suits. Maybe these may be the younger sisters of Marie and Pauline. Or maybe it's Marie and Pauline themselves. I don't know. And here in Winfield, that's at 70th Street and Queens Boulevard, Old Ramsey Street, a famous triangle building in the background, a policeman directing traffic, and this must be some of the Legrum girls. On the extreme right, by the telephone pole, I guess that must be an old type mailbox. And of course the streetcar is sticking his nose in there again. I don't know who's on this picture or where it was taken. It looks like it might be European, but the interesting thing is the officer, whether he's the captain or not, get the pipe he's smoking. He looks like he's a ladies' man. Now this must be John Legrum. Look at the clothes we had to wear those times. That must have been the top hat of the day, fashion-wise. And those high, high shoes. And Grandma Maria Legrum. She kept her figure quite nicely. 7 kids. And this is Marie. I guess she was still Miss Legrum at the time. I wonder what the girls would say about wearing clothes like this. And here's Grandma and some of her daughters. And this looks like Marie and Pauline. These gals really get dressed up. Just to show, the soldiers wore these long strips of khaki material wrapped around their calves. They called them, I believe the name was puttees, and that was part of their uniform. You can see it was taken July 15, 1918. I don't know who this person is, but I wanted to show you what they wore on their legs. Here's a group of gals. I think Pauline's in the center and Marie is on the right. I don't know the others. So we're back to Marie Mitchell, the bathing beauty. And this, I think, is Frank Mitchell. This is a photo at Spring Valley of the stream and the railroad tracks which run by the telephone poles. That's the Erie line. We're looking down towards Jersey City, maybe 30 miles away. Another photo of the engine that Frank Mitchell was fireman on. It's the Erie Railroad. Steam locomotive. Same as the previous picture, Frank was fireman on it. This was Frank Mitchell's life and career. I believe this must be Frank Mitchell standing down. He's in the lower left corner. This must be Frank Mitchell in the engineer's box. The fireman generally sat on the other side. Looks like Frank's engine was blocking traffic at this time. This is an old engine that Frank is in, and I believe the next photo will explain why he's in this old engine. Marie and Frank were probably on vacation in North Carolina, and they stopped and saw some old railroads. You can see how the step is just a couple of pieces of metal hanging down there, and it's an old piece of equipment. This looks like an early picture of Frank and Marie. Again, we have Frank and Marie. Here we have Aunt Marie Mitchell, dressed up in a sailor suit. I don't know who was connected with the Navy. This looks like the other daughter, Louise, who became Mrs. Louise Moore. She's on the left. Aunt Louise on the left. I don't know the other woman. This is Marie and Frank Mitchell. No indication if this is before or after the wedding. And this is Marie Mitchell again. And this is Pauline and her first son, Edward. And this is Edward A. Erny holding his firstborn son, Edward. And this is Frank Mitchell in the living room of his house in Spring Valley. And this is Frank Mitchell and his wife Marie. Here's another piece of history. The bathing attire, the hat, high neckline, the long one piece, and she has her forearms exposed, scandalous. And you'll notice the bathing shoes, which were almost like sneakers. Who the person is, I can't tell you, but something like this, I believe, is a piece of history. Quite an outfit. How could you swim in that? I believe this to be Marie Mitchell. I presume it's supposed to be a rowboat. That's quite a pier in the background, or is it a bridge? Guess it must be a bridge. Have no idea where or when it was taken. This is Marie and Frank Mitchell, and the woman on the right is unknown. Frank is really hamming it up. Back to Frank in a more serious vein. Must be studying about locomotives. He was always doing something like that. I hope the viewer understands that I would try to get some order out of these pictures. Having a mess of them, and having loose and having different albums. And then when you go through an album, hidden in the pages are some loose ones which you don't find till the very end. Makes the life of the recorder a little frustrating sometimes. Marie and Frank Mitchell on the right, gentleman on the left, I don't know. Perhaps it could be Frank's father. That's a guess. Tickle, tickle. Marie and Frank Mitchell, I presume in their early days. Well, this is Frank Mitchell, and I don't know the two young girls. But that's quite an old buggy he has in the picture. Those are good-sized wheels. Frank and Marie Mitchell in Spring Valley. Frank and Marie Mitchell again. Marie Mitchell. (1947), this one had a date on it. Frank Mitchell on the left, Harold Abrams, the baggage master of the railway lines, and Marie Mitchell. Well, they were quite close friends, besides being co-workers of Frank and Harry. Again, 1947, Frank Mitchell. July 26, 1949. Pauline is in the center and Marie is to her right. That's the Legrum girls, always hogging the photos. On the right we have Maria Legrum, the mother of Marie on the right, on the left. This was taken in Spring Valley. Guess Grandma was up on a visit. Marie and Frank Mitchell. Of course, no date. I know it's Spring Valley. Everybody likes to see their name in the paper, and I thought this might be appropriate. Should be self-explanatory. And here's another photo of Frank Mitchell. And we'll see what he's doing. Well, back to the throttle again. I guess he loved his steam locomotives. Here we have Marie and Frank. This is Bill Moore, Sr., who drove a gasoline tank truck. He married Louise, one of the Legrum girls. And there's Marie and Pauline with him. The rest of the group on this picture, I don't know who they are. In this group photo, Marie Mitchell on the right, Pauline Erny, Bill Moore, and that's Edward Erny. And I think that's Aunt Louise Moore, Billy's wife. Marie Mitchell. Aunt Marie Mitchell on the left. The young lady doing the painting, I don't know who that is. I know I never had a painter look like that. Marie on the left and Pauline on the right. Marie seems to be in deep thought. What a problem she must have. And this is little Francis Mitchell, later on known as Mitch, who later served in World War II in a tank. Little Mitch was a cute kid. There's little Mitch again. These photos of Mitch were taken by a machine. And it's a wonder they preserved so well and were taken so good. I think on this one he looks like Winston Churchill. What expressions. Little Mitch was a doll. And he was a cute, good-looking baby. This is Francis Mitchell and Raymond Erny, taken on the stoop of the house in Astoria. There, Francis Mitchell with his mother on the left and his father Frank on the right. That must be Marie Mitchell on the left and Francis in the center. And that's the daughter, Dorothy Mitchell, on the right. Very nice young lady, Dorothy. Mother and daughter, Marie on the right and Dorothy on the left. And I believe it was taken on the steps of the Capitol building in Albany, New York, state capitol. And here is Mitch. What is he holding, rabbits? Got something. And there's his father, Frank. And a bit of nostalgia. The locals at the old fishing hole in Spring Valley. They're quite intent on something. Mitchell, World War II combat soldier, his mother Marie, and his father on the left, World War I combat soldier. They served quite well. Same photo as before, but I wanted to get Francis in there pretty good. This is Miss Dorothy Mitchell, my cousin. Must be for graduation. Sister of Francis. Dorothy Mitchell again, and I believe these must have been taken around 1938 and 1939. Another pose of Dorothy. Both Francis and Dorothy were adopted by Frank and Marie Mitchell. This is Dorothy Mitchell on the left and Edward Erny on the right. Must have been around 1938. We were good friends, got along very well together. Very good relationship for cousins. Best as I can recall, this is a photo of Edward on the right and Dorothy on the left. It must be 1935, a graduation from a grammar school. So nice to be that young again. And we'll end up this little segment of the Mitchells with Frank and Mary back here again. Yes, he had quite a World War I record. This man saw a lot of action. Well, we finished with the oldest sister, Marie, and now we come to the second sister in line, Pauline, and her family. And that's Pauline and Raymond and Robert. It's in our backyard in Astoria. And let's see what these kids are doing. Well, that's something. And this is the oldest son, Edward. This was a real fancy studio photo. And boy, get that haircut. They used a soup bowl. Fancy collar like that. Now this is the family of the third sister, Louise. Maybe she wasn't the third, but I think so. And this is Mr. and Mrs. Moore. That's Billy Moore in the center. And they have 3 children. Bill's top left, Gloria center, and Warren lower left. This was taken out at Lake Ronkonkoma, Long Island. And we have on the left front, I believe that's Warren Moore. Behind him is his mother Louise and Grandma Legrum. Then Marie Mitchell. Looks like Robert Erny. And Jane Roundtree in the front, that young lady. And then in the rear we have Pauline Erny, Matilda Roundtree, that's Aunt Till, and Jean Roundtree, who is now Mrs. John Waters in Kansas City, Kansas. By the way, she has, I believe, 7 children. Mother and 2 daughters. Another daughter. And another daughter. We have another family group of the Legrum family. Maria, the mother, in the front. And then in the left rear is Marie, that's Matilda, Pauline, and Louise. And this is Louise Moore. We're back to a family group taken in Spring Valley. On the left is Pauline, the mother, Maria Legrum, and Marie, Frank, Louise, and Bill. That's the oldest daughter, Maria, on the right, the mother, Maria, and the second daughter, Pauline. Same picture, but we get some close-ups of Marie Mitchell, her husband Frank, Louise, and her husband Bill. And this is Louise Moore. Bill Moore. I don't know what he was doing with the gun. Best thing he hunted up was a beer. I guess his fedora is on backward. He must be clowning around somewhat. Again, we have Bill Moore. I guess he must be up at Harold Abrams' house. Harold Abrams had all those guns and stuff. That almost looks like a Japanese samurai sword. Maybe his son brought home the rifle and the sword, because Bill Jr. served in the Navy out in the Pacific. He was on a destroyer. Back to Bill Moore again. There we have him. And this is Louise Moore. Well, that's quite a pose. And that's quite an expression. She was fun-loving, outgoing. Just have to show this older model car off, and Aunt Louise seems to be admiring it. I presume she owns it. It's a Ford. How about that? New York license plates. So I guess it's her car. This is Louise Moore on the left, and I don't know who the other people are. Here we have Louise on the right. The center person I do not know, and of course Bill is on the left. In this photo we have Louise in the center, Marie behind her, Bill the husband, Pauline, and the gentleman on the extreme left I do not know. And this is Bill and Louise Moore. This is Grandpa and Grandma Legrum, and the baby Grandma is holding, I believe, is Bill Moore. This is Louise Moore and the baby, which I still believe is Bill Moore. And this must be one of Louise's sisters. And this is Warren Moore, the youngest of the Moore boys. And this is Warren Moore, must be First Communion. Here we have Warren Moore and family group. Warren is right in front of Grandma. Pauline is on the left, Marie's on the right. In the background on the left, I believe, is Louise. In the center is Betty. And way up in the back must be Dorothy. And the person hiding on the left, I don't know who it is. This one looks like Frances Mitchell on the left, Jean Roundtree on the right, and I don't know who the Indian is, probably Raymond. On the left we have Jean Roundtree, Robert Erny, Tilly Roundtree, and behind her is her husband Ted. And the little girl in the front is Jane Roundtree. We have Pauline Erny. Right rear is Frank Mitchell and Marie Mitchell. This is a good group. And this is Bill Moore Jr., of course. Must be a graduation picture. And this is Bill Moore Sr., and he's at the house in Winfield. He's looking good on this picture, sort of slimmer. Louise Moore, and one of her flirtatious looks. showing Louise on the right and some of her friends. I remember taking this picture. It was supposed to be some fancy photography, having the subject and then the subject's image reflected in the mirror. Louise and the mirror. And that is the finish of the Moore family and the end of Louise. Now we'll start on the Roundtree group. This, I believe, is Jean Roundtree on the steps of the house in Astoria, Pauline's house. If I make a mistake, I can't help it, but that's about the best I can do with the identification. This photo looks like Marie Mitchell. So I'm still wondering who the child is. And this is Jane Roundtree, Christmas time. Pretty baby. Tilly Roundtree, mother and young daughter. Wintertime, Astoria, Long Island. Guess we got some snow those days too. Is that someone else hiding in the picture? Guess so. That must be Jean, and Jane must be the baby in the sled. Wintertime, backyard in Astoria. Jean Roundtree is on the left, and I believe that's Raymond in the center. Looks like Jean Roundtree on the left and Robert Erny on the right. Jean Roundtree, and she looks so serious on this picture. That's a lovely bouquet. And this is the Roundtree girls. Jean on the left and Jane on the right. They look happy in this picture. They look pretty much the same today. Both good-looking young ladies. Give a repeat of this photo. We have Aunt Till and her two daughters. And we're back with the group. Concentrate on the round trees if we can. That's Jean on the left and Robert and Aunt Till the mother, and then Jane, the other daughter, in front of her. The father and husband, Teddy Roundtree, is in the rear. Next to him is Frank Mitchell, Marie Mitchell, and Pauline Legrum is in there also. And this is Elizabeth Legrum, called Betty, and I believe that is her future husband, Ed Lewis. She became Mrs. Lewis. Once again, we come back to Aunt Betty. Betty and her husband, Ed Lewis. And this is the only pictures I have of Betty, one of the younger daughters of the Legrum family. This is Uncle John Legrum. He had 6 sisters, and he was the only boy. He served in World War II, attached to Camp Ord, California. I believe that's where this photo was taken. On the back is written, "Sent to Bobby, love Uncle John," probably meaning Robert Erny. This is John Legrum at an early age and one of his sisters. This is John Legrum and his steady girl at that time, and suddenly she passed away at an early age. Uncle John was very taken back by that. I presume they were about ready to be married. This is John Legrum holding Edward Erny. Now that's quite a number of years ago. Once again we have John Legrum and his sweetheart in the young early days of his life. I recall meeting her several times. And this is a character I have to put in. I only can remember him by Henry. He always had a Cadillac, the convertible kind, the open kind, and he parked it in our garage. We rented him garage space. He had a little carpentry business in Manhattan, but what a character. Knew all kinds of jokes and tricks, hard drinking, chased a good number of girls around, and I don't believe he was ever married. But he was a gentleman, and once having met him, you couldn't forget him. We can do a little brother and sister act here. Betty is on the left, and that's John in uniform. So, okay, here's the close-up of Betty and John. Betty and John again. John was single all this time. Betty got a divorce from Ed Lewis, and she finally met a fellow she lived with for a long time as husband and wife, and he was a rancher in Texas, and they opened a honky-tonk down there. The woman on the left is Helen, and John is in the center, and Giselle is on the right. Must be some kind of a picnic we went on. But Helen and John got married. And they lived in Astoria. Helen and John Legrum. Back to Helen and John again. We are still on that picnic, and this is my daughter Elaine in the foreground. It's Elaine Erny, now Mrs. Pfeiffer. And we have Uncle John on the left, and Elaine's mother Giselle on the right. Everyone must have been thirsty. Giselle on the left and Helen Legrum standing on the right, and Uncle John with Edward in the foreground. This must have been a picnic we were on up at Mystic. There's young Edward and Uncle John. Helen on the left and Giselle. John must be holding Edward. Helen and John. Seems like every picture Uncle John has a beer can in his hand. Helen and John again. The Uncle John sitting at a bar, Bluebird bar. You can see the bluebirds in the background. He helped build this bar. But this is a pretty good family group. I believe up in the upper left-hand corner is Jean Roundtree and Pauline on the left front, and Grandma Legrum, and Uncle John, still in a soldier uniform on this one, his sister Louise, and that's Ted Roundtree. So that was Uncle John. This is John Legrum doing some roofing on the roof of my mother's house in Astoria, Queens. And I don't know if that's Ted Roundtree hiding in the window. Uncle John up on the roof with my friend Tom Conroy. And John is working on the pause that refreshes. And this is Edward, John's helper on this project. Uncle John diligently at work. I know he's not saying his prayers, he's working. That window behind John was Aunt Tillie's apartment, Aunt Till and Uncle Ted's. They rented it from my mother. Another photo of John at work. John and I became quite friendly after I bought the house in Elmont. He came out and helped me build. Actually, he did most of it. I was his helper again, making the basement. Fixed up 6 rooms in that basement. Just to let you know that I was doing some work also. I didn't take all the pictures. That's Aunt Till peeking out of the window of her kitchen. Here's Ed faking it again. I was good at that. Now this ends the showing of John and Maria Legrum's daughters and their families and son John. All nice daughters and son, all nice families. Out and helped me build. Actually, he did most of it. I was his helper again, making the basement. Fixed up 6 rooms in that basement. Just to let you know that I was doing some work also. I didn't take all the pictures. That's Aunt Till peeking out of the window of her kitchen. Here's Ed faking it again. I was good at that. Now this ends the showing of John and Maria Legrum's daughters and their families and son John. All nice daughters and son, all nice families.